Pump's primed. Woo! Welcome to another episode of wiring the Barra. Alrighty, so a massive thank you to nissanpatrol.com.au. They have got the original service manuals for a GQ that you can download for free. So massive thank you to them. What I ended up doing was going through this wiring loom and picking out what I needed, being oil pressure, being a charge lamp, also the full drive switches and things like that, as that was on the old TB42 wiring loom. So gone through with the wiring diagram and started pulling out pins and cutting out looms. Also, I'm going to thin this totally out so it only has what I need in there. What we're going to do is run all the Barra relays in through just a cheap eBay bought relay box. That's going to sit in there. I did really want to put it inside the cab, but after having a look, there's really no spot to put it. That's neat and out of the way. So we'll just utilize the factory position. That'll go down in there, as well as a fuse box. There we go there. That will run things like fan, high, low. It'll use a start relay. Everything switches to negative with a Barra, where some of the stuff on the GQ has a positive switch. So from our four-wheel drive switch, yellow with L means that's a solid yellow with a blue line through it. We're going to follow that down across, goes into this connector here, which I've already cut out, goes back through, follows up to here into Y and L, and then to position number 4 in the combination meter, which is just our dashboard or our gauge cluster. Number 4 in our combination meter is full drive. So what I've gone and done is traced out the wires. This is it here. Now that switch just switches to negative, or a chassis earth, or in our case now, our battery negative post. So I've just jerry-rigged that. Having that connected should mean that our four-wheel drive switch is on in the dashboard. And there you go. If I disconnect it, it's now off. So the ones that just switch to negative, I'm going to then test to make sure I'm on the right ones. Other switches have got resistance on them, which I'm going to have to wait until I actually use a switch to test it, and we'll go from there. Since I've been spending hours sorting through these wiring looms, I've finally found everything that I'm after, from low oil pressure alarm lights to trans over temp switches, the oil pressure gauge itself, coolant temp, etc., ignition switches and whatnot. So I've thinned out a whole heap of stuff, removed things like the auto choke relay, that's now gone. There's a bunch of stuff that controls the old RE4, which I still needed to go through. But while I was doing that, massive shout out to my dad. He came past and wired up a relay box as well as the fuse panel for me. So I've made up a quick little bracket for it to sit on, and I'll show you where that goes. But if we have a quick squeeze here at a wiring loom, which I'll post up photo now, we've got on this left side here the GQ white, so GQW, which then gives us a 12 volt feed constant to our Ford loom. Our Ford loom, massive shout out to Corey Bice. He really stepped up his game. I didn't have the ability to delete PATs off of a PCM, so I sent him off the PCM, as well as gave him one connector, I believe, for an FG, and then he made the rest. So saved me a bunch of time, so thank you. Gave me a bunch of inputs / outputs, which I now need to hook up, and then that's where we refer to this here. From the left, we've got fan 1, fan 2, number 3 here. That's just a trigger for the fuel pump, which these two circuits here intertwined. Then from there, we've got an ignition circuit, and then the last circuit being a yellow blue stripe starter motor, and then a light green start in. What that is, that there is a trigger, so the ZF then knows that there's been a start or an attempt to start, and then it can continue to run. So from here with our fuse box, we've got all our negatives go to the negative buzz bar. On the other side, we've got our positive that'll come off of our battery via a MIDI fuse. All our browns are our circuit 12 volts. And then we've also got one yellow and green, that's for our starting circuit. And then the purples are all our negative triggers. So negative triggers which go over to these here, which all connect up. And then that's how we do it. This is a little bracket that I folded up. It is actually going to sit down in here. A couple of riv nuts to hold it back to the engine bay, or one down. So fuse box is going to live here, relay box in here. We'll loom tape all this up so you can't see any of it and it looks nice and pretty. Also corrie it across the firewall and it'll pick up the PCM somewhere over there. Now there is an airbox that's going to go there, so I can't make a bracket up just yet, but somewhere over there is where it'll all live. So I'm going to go quickly get all this put in, and then we should almost be ready to fire. Now just quickly, battery cable, I'm going with black as I want to keep everything sort of neat and tidy, rather than having a dirty big red wire run across the back of the firewall. So black with red terminal ends. That's ends for the starter. Got to run that back across the firewall and then pick up a battery positive. I'm also waiting on a projector, I think projector make it, MIDI fuse block terminal here. So that should almost be here in the mail, and then that way we can have everything fuse protected and it'll look a hell of a lot neater and a bit more professional. So yeah, get it done. Rightio guys, got the fuse box in, mounted, and then the relay box is just sitting in here. Going to jerry rig up our negative triggers and also hook up the engine loom. So that's sitting here. This loom, it's gonna go in there. Boom, there it is. Engine loom's in. Going to hold off putting in the ignition coils, as I'm going to take the rocker cover off and I'm going to make sure that we've got oil pressure to the top of the head before I go to fire it. So I'm going to jerry rig up our negative triggers across to here, plug the PCM in, and then basically get it ready to fire. Bear with me a tick. So I've just been wiring in some circuits. As I said before, our purples are our negative triggers. What I'm going to do is I've wired in the fuel pump into this fuse box already. This is simulating what the PCM will do, which will send a negative trigger through to the fuel pump circuit. So if I was to earth this out, our fuel pump turns on. We'll keep going. Rightio, so got the stuff hooked up from the original GQ wiring loom that will need to run the PCM, an ignition switch and a start trigger. Got the engine loom in with nothing hooked up, and then our connections for our PCM are there. Got our ground on. What I'm going to do is take the rocker cover off, throw some oil in it, and then we're going to plug our PCM in and see if it cranks. I'm actually shit myself. So exciting times, and almost time to fire this thing up. So let me get this rocker cover off. We'll throw some oil in there, check it on the dipstick, and then throw some cam phases in there, some coils after we've got some oil pressure, and see where we're at. Well, it's been a while since the rocker cover's been off this thing. Oh gosh. All right, I'll grab some oil quickly, put some oil in there, and get it all over those rockers and make sure everything's all good. Wish me luck. Oh, shit. Holy gosh. How bloody good's that? Alrighty, so you would have just seen the oil pressure come out of the cam phaser port out of each one there. So now we'll put the rocker cover back on, put some cam phasers in there, and coils, hook up the injectors. It's time for the first start. Rightio, so my mess, that's what happens when we're doing stuff. If you remember, we went with genuine coils. So FG coils with 0.7mm gapped plugs. So we'll go whack them in. And just with these, I'll put a little bit of dielectric grease on the inside of them. Just helps that spark. And water ingress. Alright guys, coils are in, injectors are hooked up, phasers are on. Wish us luck. Here we go. Pump's primed. Alright guys, we're going to call it a day there. It runs. It runs good and it runs well, and on the next episode I'll have all this wiring cleaned up.